We are Robin and Steve, and we've made it to Vanuatu. It was a very mellow few days at sea, apart from at dusk, when birds would circle our moving platform, eyeing it off as a potential rest spot and privy. Meet some of our nighttime guests and feel grateful that you didn't have to clean up after them. But we did appreciate the company on our sometimes lonely night shifts. After heaving to for a few hours, the rising sun meant that we could make our way into Port Resolution, Tanna Island. Tanna is 40 kilometres long and 19 kilometres wide and was first settled in 400 BC. Tanna alone has 5 indigenous languages. We'd pre-arranged to be able to check in at Port Resolution, and so could take down our quarantine flag and raise the Vanuatu flag. We were already super impressed with Vanuatu. We were humbled since it's quite normal here to speak 5 or more languages, to carve your own canoe, and to be more or less self-sufficient. Just over the hill from here we could see Mount Yasur puffing away, but there's a lot to see just here in the bay. Not far from these rock formations was direct evidence of geothermal activity. Whole sections of coastline constantly exhale steam and ooze boiling water. We are both quite fascinated by geothermal activity, and that's one of the main reasons we were drawn here, to get close to an active volcano. And just getting to Mount Yasur proved to be quite an adventure. We got to meet this electrician and her kids and their very fast dog. Vanuatu was hit by 2 Category 5 cyclones. This heroic lady pulled down all the solar panels in the village and stored them, and then reinstalled them once the danger had passed. We stayed aboard longer than our travel mates, and here we bid farewell to a boy, his school bag and his fish, and gave a wave to the road workers. With all those cyclones, it's a big job for them. We'd left Port Resolution mid-afternoon so that we could walk up Mount Yasur early evening and stay a little into the night. Volcanologists keep an eye on the volcanic activity. With an activity level of 2 today, we were safe to go and see the crater. Any higher, and that would be off limits. It's only a short walk from the car park to the crater rim. We'd come on a windy day, which was something we couldn't control, and which meant that smoke obscured our view into the crater. But we wouldn't have missed this for the world. Given that Vanuatu Air isn't running at the moment, there were just a few other boaties and us. These old guardrails have been superseded, thankfully. Our view may have been obscured by smoke, but even the smoke shook from the explosions in the crater below. Yep, this place is loud and violent, powerful and awesome. And as the light drained from the sky, we could see the explosions. In the low light, our camera struggled and didn't do this spectacle justice. The word awesome is often overused, but here it's appropriate. Mount Yasur has been erupting nearly continuously for several hundred years, and it can erupt several times an hour. I felt like I could have watched this all night, but our guides had families to get back to, so we headed back to the ute by torchlight and retraced our bumpy ride home. Next day we strolled from the black sand beach of Port Resolution to the white sand beach just over the way. This area is quite exposed, and this shelter looked a little worse for wear. We spent happy hours rock hopping across the lava around the coast. Our sandals didn't enjoy the terrain as much as we did. These beautifully woven containers were found all over the place, so much better than plastic. This had been knocked face down in the sand. That's much better. Sculpted palm trunks were another thing we saw out and about. We found bits of this ship all up and down the coast. Nobody wants to be in that ship when this happens. We'd made a booking for lunch and were told to wait in this beach shelter at noon. We didn't know what to expect, and it turned out to be beyond my dreams. So delicious. And after a meal, it's so nice to soak in a hot bath, which could be boiling if you get your timing wrong.
Whoa, it's really nice. It's really nice.
We just swim to where the boiling water meets the ocean and vary our positioning carefully as the waves surge in and out. It's hard to explain how much I love hot springs, so this was a highlight of my life.
Yeah, it gets hot, doesn't it?
Didn't burn, but we did have another restaurant to try. Another little shelter with a meal to die for. We did some excellent trading with people in canoes, trading rope for vegetables like this snake bean. Unlike any bean I've seen before, you just steam the husk. This was so good. Would we be disappointed with everything after Tanna? We were on our way to Erromango. We hadn't been long anchored at Dillans Bay when David came out to welcome us in his dugout canoe and invited us for a tour of the town and the river for less than $10. Bargain. And he had produce for us. And this is in a place where they're lucky to get one delivery boat a month. They have to be self-sufficient here at Erromango. And what a beautiful little village it is here at Dillans Bay. First we met David at the Dillans Bay Yacht Club and checked out the visitor book. And David showed us some foods we've never tried before or seen since. Each hut has its own individual flair, like this one lined in shells. Like most of Vanuatu, this area was hard hit by the cyclones. They've had to rebuild this seawall, and they've built new cyclone shelters from local materials. We got to see the school, massive banyan trees, and the river with its surrounding farmlands. David explained that much of the farmland has been swept away in floods. There had been many more banana trees growing right here. David was pretty proud to show us a tree. This is a kauri tree, planted by, I think he said, his grandmother. We love that lots of Vanuatu still has healthy forests, and how crops and jungles can coexist. This is a sandalwood tree. Sandalwood is a super valuable tree to have, but they're quite slow growing, and so they hope to keep planting more. Next stop was this gorgeous waterhole. David sent us away with much needed fruit and nuts, and we were so glad to have done the tour with him. The next day we paddled a little north. We'd been invited over by a couple of friendly people in a little fishing boat. The people who'd invited us weren't there, but as it turned out, Anthony was there. And when we told him we'd like to go for a walk, he, along with some kids and dogs, led us across the rocks through the forest to something we weren't expecting to see today. In this cave sits the skull of a chief and those of some of his family. The bones have been here a long time. But wait, there's more to this tour we didn't even know we were going on. In this next cave, Anthony explained that these are the remains of people who have been eaten. Again, it was a long time ago. There's even an old buckle here that had been traded perhaps for a lot of sandalwood. People have been treated very badly by colonists. Let this be a cautionary tale to rip-off merchants. From bony caves to crystal clear waters. These are some of the clearest waters we've ever seen. And although there's really not a lot of coral, I managed to find some. Waiting for us as we came ashore and showed us a freshwater spring flowing straight over the pebbles and good enough to drink. But our friends wanted to give us an even more special drink, straight from the coconut. I've never seen such a skilled tree climber. Thanks to our friends, we paddled back with a kayak full of bananas and coconuts. Paddled back around the corner to our boat, feeling very grateful indeed. But we got to see our amazing spontaneous tour guides one more time, back aboard Rakali. There's a lot more to see in Vanuatu, but I'm going to leave you hanging, in the knowledge that the rest of Vanuatu continued to be awesome. As we head north, we'll find friends, see dugongs, find more hot springs, and just continue to be impressed by beautiful Vanuatu.